Hey everybody, Andy from Tennis Euphoria, bringing you a review of the Dunlop CX 400 tour. I've always had pretty good quality control when it comes to the 400 tours, same with the previous iteration. Mine was on spec, 300 grams unstrung, swing weight strung was 319.5. I wanted to start by trying to compare the new version to the outgoing version. As you'll know, I was a huge fan of the outgoing version. It has a special place in my heart. I used it for good 6 to 9 months, won a club champs with it, ended up having 3, and I really deeply regret selling on 2 that I had, leaving me just with the 1 that we have for our customization and matching services. I really had to study the new one quite closely compared to the old to sort of recognize differences. Ultimately, this is a new mold and there are changes. In terms of sort of visible specs, noted an extra point of stiffness on RA, even though RA doesn't tell us a whole story. In terms of playability, I was very much able to interchange the previous iteration and the current iteration without any sort of noticeable big differences in performance. So I think that's an interesting point. If you're using the previous and are happy with it, I wouldn't necessarily rush to upgrade to the current expecting to have a totally different experience, because they largely do play with very similar performance levels and characteristics across all shots. I did notice a slight difference in stability, and I think this really came to the fore playing some doubles in those sort of fast exchanged volleys. I was noticing a difference there. I haven't got any clips of that to show you, but it was certainly noticeable. And I'm possibly getting a little bit more on my serve with the new version compared to the old. So there's perhaps a little bit more power in this frame too. However, what we have previously and now is, in my view, a really excellent tennis racket if you fall into the category that would benefit from this type of frame. I want to be careful not to be too biased, because clearly this is something that I get on very well with, and it is something that I will use. But of course, it's not going to be for everybody. So I'm going to try and be, sort of as unbiased as possible, and just give you an appraisal as to what the characteristics of the frame are and what sort of player it would suit. In terms of its characteristics, going back to those specs, this is a 100 square inch frame with a 23mm beam and a 16x19 pattern. The string pattern is a little bit more spread out through the frame on the current compared to the previous, but it still remains quite a dense in the center controlled pattern, and that's something that certainly fits for me and would fit for others who are ultimately looking for a racket that has its DNA in control orientated frames. It's a box beam, and there again I felt was a subtle difference at the throat of the frame, a visible difference there. And people who have hit it have commented really positively about the box beam, both the previous but more so the current. So if you like a box beam, you're going to like this. The 23mm beam offers lots of stability in stock form and lots of power too. I would say this is a little bit more powerful than some of its competitors. Thinking of the Percept 100, I think there's probably a bit more power with this one here. Similar levels of power to the Speed MP, but for me, I think the difference with this and the Speed MP is that this has a more reliable response, and I think you feel more connected with where the ball is going to go from the string bed. Ultimately, I think it's got better control than the Speed MP. So the power levels are relatively high. This is very fast through the air as well, and that helps, of course, to deliver some of that power. But I also think it makes it a really good stick if you're looking for something that is really maneuverable and fast through the air. I don't feel the need to customize this frame. I like about a 320 swing weight nowadays. I do play with a leather grip, which I have added now that I know that I'm very much keeping this frame and getting another one. But I don't need to customize from there for it to give me everything that I need. The only thing that I would mention is I usually don't play with dampeners, but I do in these CX400 tours. You get a little bit of a sound that might bother some, won't bother most, but it's one of the few rackets that I actually do like to play with the dampener in, just to mute things down a little bit more in terms of that sound response. Doesn't really affect playability. So it might be valuable for me to describe why I like this frame, because if you are a player that identifies with the similar needs that I do, then it'll help you understand as to why it's good in that instance. So I'm 45, work hard on my fitness and mobility, and I'm probably, compared to most 45-year-olds, pretty good in that respect. But of course, I'm mindful as I'm aging. I'm often playing with people who are younger than me, and certainly people who hit with, you know, a lot of spin, a lot of power, and quite aggressively, as I'm always trying to play with high-level people where I can. So I am looking for a frame that offers me, you know, quite a lot of forgiveness increasingly, but ultimately has, you know, a controlled history in its DNA. Looking for a frame that, you know, will send the ball where I want it to when my technique is right, and I'm someone who will commit to working on my game and technique to make sure that that happens. And I'm also someone who is looking for a little bit more free power nowadays, certainly on my serve. Noticing that that is starting to slow down as I'm aging a little bit, and I do get a bit more power from this CX400 tour compared to typical control orientated frames. I'm looking for, you know, a fair bit of spin generation, and I optimize that with this frame with my choice of string. I think Dunlop Explosive Bite is a really good match with this frame, both the yellow that I'm using here and the black version. The other thing is that I really want to be able to you know, feel where the ball is going, and I want the frame to help me around volleys and touch. I'm someone who views myself as very much having a game that starts at the baseline, and I'm probably a bit of a grinder slash counter puncher who likes to build points from the back, but I'm increasingly working hard on improving the versatility and variety within my game. So I'm looking for a frame that can help me with that too. So if that sort of resonates with you, then you're going to get on very, very well with this frame. It obviously fits into that category, which is doing, you know, everything quite well. You've still got some good control, but you've got added power and a good bit of forgiveness combined with a maneuverable package. So it's a category that I've talked a bit about in my last video, and is increasingly doing, you know, very well across lots of target groups. I think ultimately players need to be relatively advanced to get the most out of this frame, but such a versatile frame, I'd very much encourage you to demo it. Hope that was useful and of interest. Hope it wasn't too biased. As you've probably picked up, it's going to be a frame that I use. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.